So this meeting, study session is called to order at 6:06 p.m. Donna, will you call the roll, please?
I will. Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Councilmember Feast.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Bode.
Here.
And I won't call on the mayor yet because he can't answer.
He's on my
on your
speakerphone,
speaker?
Donna.
Mayor Dorsey. Yay.
Yep. Okay, so tonight we have a couple of presentations and an opportunity for council to hear about some major projects that are underway in the city and to have discussion about those projects and hopefully provide some direction on both of those so we can present you with the final product and it's ready to go and it meets the needs of the citizens of Shelton. So Ken, if you would start the first one, which I believe is the Western Gateway project update.
You bet. Council, I am disappointed. I had hoped to see it face to face tonight. So to kind of get myself ready for this, I walked the project because it's so nice out. I used the sidewalk on the south side and came back on the north, and it's a rough ride. So it kind of matches the drive. So I'm going to share the screen with you and we'll go through some slides on where we're at. Okay, so we're gonna. Okay, now we're gonna stop it and we're gonna do it again real quick. Okay, so you guys should be seeing the title slide. And you guys all live here, so you know where Railroad Avenue is at. This project is specifically North 8th Street to Pacific Court, or the really bad part when you drive into town. So you don't need to know where the project is. You can feel it in your car as you drive it. So. Excellent. Okay, project scope includes some new hot mix asphalt pavement, a new concrete sidewalk, some stormwater improvements, placement of a water main that's at the end of its design life, and a flashing beacon at 9th and Railroad Avenue to serve Evergreen Elementary. It'll match the one that exists right now, right there by United Way and Blondie's on Railroad Avenue. Here's the partial design of the water main. The water main gets replaced. It stops just short of Pacific Court and then goes all the way back to 8th. I didn't include all the sheets for you. Here's some existing conditions now. You see alligator cracking, and proposed improvements are some new asphalt and a sidewalk on the south side, along with road approaches to each of the residents there. So existing conditions, this is about a year ago. It's even worse now. And then proposed conditions showing the new asphalt and new sidewalk and the striping.
Can while we're in a study session, Mr. Mayor, is it okay if we ask open questions?
That is,
I'm sorry, what?
if while we're in a study session, is it okay for council to ask open questions? Absolutely. You can ask them during the middle of the presentation or save them to the end, whichever is your preference.
Okay. Hey, Ken, can you go back to that last slide?
You bet.
All right. So I had a citizen question about the proposed improvement, specifically on the middle lane there. And they were wondering, in that proposed area, there isn't a whole lot of entry areas and the businesses there. It's mostly just, it would be blocked off sidewalk. So why do we need a middle lane right there?
So it's an excellent question. The question I heard is, why do you need a center turn lane? Because no one's turning, right? And this is just a preliminary sketch that I've used to try to chase funding. And we aren't complete with the design yet. If there's that back, and then I want to get the drive lanes for sure. We might eliminate some of that center turn lane and get the drive lanes and not pave where the parking area is. So get the worst of the worst asphalt with available funding that we have. So this will come back to you after the budget season, after we've completed design and we go out to bid, and I can show you those plans when we're complete with the design.
That's fabulous.
Okay.
And any, this design that has a potential for a bike lane is fabulous.
Okay. Save that question to another couple slides and let's talk about that a little bit more. Okay. Okay.
Ken, if I could follow up on that. So the other thing that I imagine may have gone into this is we have further down Railroad. You also, from block to block on Railroad Avenue, do not have turnouts in the middle of the block and, on Railroad from 1st to 7th. But those are used to help get traffic out of the way so that they can expedite through town in a safe fashion and get people ready to turn in at those crosses. So I imagine we'll leave it to your guys' expertise, but it probably has to do too with the alignment with the remaining roadway down to First Street, not necessarily cosmetically, but functionally how that path follows.
I think to add to what Councilmember Peterson said, one of the advantages of having that center turn lane is emergency vehicles. So the other one thing that I'm constrained with is budget. And I want to make sure and complete the scope that we promised our funding partners and also replace our water main. So, we're taking out the tracks. We don't have the section, it stops at the tracks. So it's a balancing act as we go through the design process, and you guys get to approve the final version. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide, and you guys can ask questions anytime you want. I can't wait to answer them. Yes, I saw a hand up there, Councilman McNell.
Kathy, you're on mute.
Councilmember
Kathy, you're still
McDowell,
on mute.
you're on mute.
There I am. Can you go back one slide further up Railroad where they show some of the sidewalks in front of the houses?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question about that. Those sidewalks, do they belong to the owner of the property or do they belong to the city?
That's a good question. I'm going to repeat it, make sure I understand it. Who owns the sidewalk after we build it?
Yes, who owns the sidewalk?
And right now, if you dig into your municipal code, it's the responsibility of the property owner to maintain the sidewalk. Here's an example recently that I had to work with a resident on that at 9th, it's either 9th or 10th and Franklin, right across from Evergreen Elementary. There's this really big, giant maple tree that is doing a really great job of pushing up the sidewalk. And we didn't plan it, but maybe the previous owner's great grandfather did, and they want to keep it because it provides shade. So we finally landed that it's your responsibility to fix a sidewalk, and if you want to take down the tree, and they didn't want to take out the tree. So we worked with them to route the sidewalk around the tree because we have enough right of way. Now here, that scenario would not play out so well because the sidewalk's got to be where the sidewalk's got to be so you can ride your bike down the road, right? You see that little strip of bike lane here?
Yep.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come and talk to you about this because I have some issues about that. I won't bring up right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But you answered the part I wanted. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. This slide shows Evergreen Elementary just outside the picture, at Railroad Avenue and 9th Street. And Shelton was blessed to be selected by Safe Routes to School funding. And this is one of the 3 locations that we got funded for to do a flashing beacon. And it's more than a flashing beacon. You need to make sure that someone with disabilities and a wheelchair can get across to that road. What's really hard to see is there's an arrow. It says RRFB. That stands for Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon. It's a washed out term. I didn't come up with it, but that's what it means. And they're on both sides. So you push the button, you get across here. There's an existing sidewalk here that we're using, but then we're adding sidewalk. And then we're adding a ramp here to tie into the existing one that's right here where my cursor is. And you'll have to trust me on that, but if you walk there, there's one right there. So that's wasn't initially part of the scope, part of the project, but this site scored really well with Safe Routes to School. And when we reached out to the school district, we said, where do you want it? And these are the top 2 sites were here. And then from the track, or up at the high school, from the track to the Huff and Puff Trail. Where's the most need? At Pacific Court, there is a bus pullout planned. Before Danette Brannon moved to, I believe she moved to Pierce Transit, we'd worked out a kind of a handshake cost sharing agreement. If this needs to remain in the project, I'm recommending that we talk more with Amy Asher, who we met at the ribbon cutting, to see if they'd participate in that. It benefits them because it gives them a spot to pull out and then let traffic go through. Bus drivers usually don't like it because then they've got to pull back out again, right? But I think it makes the project a better spot, and it also gives the residents a spot to get on the bus rather than standing over there in the there's an old water pipeline over there. It's kind of half collapsed if you walk along the tracks, and if you're not careful, you'll get your foot stuck in it. So that's a much safer spot to stand than what's there now. This shows the majority of the improvements with the bus pullout and as you come into town. And the reason why I paused Councilmember Feist about a bike lane is that you certainly can ride your bike along the sidewalk there, but a much better spot to ride your bike would be after we removed maybe some of these railroad tracks to put down a paved path. I know if I have a few kids, and that would be a great spot for a race because it's all downhill the whole way. So if we ever did get that built, not part of this project, my first task would be to challenge City Manager Knighton and Director Ziegler in a bicycle race. And I would go for team council. I'd run for team council, so I get some cheering, But that would be a great project for future project for Shelton.
I
Do you
agree.
suggest a bicycle race or a tricycle race?
Ooh.
Well, the losers would have to ride tricycles the rest of the way back into town, I think would be.
How about a big wheel race? And
yeah, I'm
be able
dating
to
myself,
ride-
but I always partial with the green machine. I like the green machine. That was the pretty cool one. So
I'd like to be able to ride my big wheel though.
oh, you want to ride your big, okay.
All the way down Railroad and then hit a pathway.
Yeah.
Once that starts. So
Yes.
think about the design and the through part of being able to have bikers that can come through, whether it's down Railroad or through another route through town. I think we should be considering this as as part of the in this planning, if not in this space, but helping those through bicyclists get through downtown, like I said, safely, get to the Irish pub that's going to be opening soon. They could hit the tap room, stay a while, once we get some more hotels in the area. So just a little bit more, to think about, Tim.
We're in a study session, so I get to share my vision, but my vision would be that we would cruise on our bicycle or tricycle or big wheel or whatever way, all the way down to Neyland Park, right? And get off there at Neyland Park and have some lunch, and then be able to bike back home to where you live. That would be great. So, okay, a couple more slides here on. So the history is it's been a #1 on your 6-year tip since before I started. In 2019, Shelton was awarded some money from TIB for the pavement and for the sidewalk, and the matching requirements and the dates that we got the funding are on the slide. I already talked about the safe routes to school, so I'm not going to spend much time on this one, but a portion of the grant and the match are listed there. Just if you're curious, the other location is at 7th and Franklin. So that's the 3. This is the project costs broken out by our grants and the city portions that need to go into them to make this project go. It's a costly project. It's a lengthy project, and there's a lot of big improvements that happen. I'm a big fan of it because it's the main entrance to Shelton off 101. So next steps, we've got to go in front of TIB. We got the money in 2019, and they want to know why we haven't spent it. So I've got to put together a process to show them. We've got getting our plans moving forward. We're going through the budget process right now and plan to build it in 2022 with your blessing in the budget process. We got to complete the design. We got to advertise for construction. Some things for you guys to think about. I've already talked about TIB. I'm fairly confident that if we don't build it next year, they'll probably ask for their money back. The other thing to think about is how to save costs. One way to save costs on a project of this magnitude, when you're putting in a big water main or tearing up a lot of road, building a lot of sidewalk, is closing the road. And that certainly has some implications for those businesses along there. But you certainly do have an alternate route in Franklin if you came in at where Miles Sand and Gravel is at. But that's, we're not making any decisions on this. I just wanted you to think about that. That's one way to save on your traffic control. That's always a big budget line item. Kind of a standard is we always coordinate with our friends Robert Heron and Tracy at the school district to make sure that we don't impact their efforts. An example of that is with our chip seal that's going on North 13th. They've asked us if we're going to be doing during school that we shut off in the morning, around 9 to 10 to let the bus through, or shut off in the afternoon. So the other thing that we need to coordinate is with MTA, because this is one of their main routes. They have several bus routes that go through here today. We've already talked about the bus pullout. And the water main is one of the costly items. So it's a big chunk out of our water utility. City Manager Knighton can talk more about some additional funding that he's got to help replace those funds. But that's all I had presented for you tonight. And I'm interested in all your thoughts and ideas and questions tonight. And even if not tonight, as a follow-up anytime. I'm all ears.
So just wanted to mention real quick that as part of the funding strategies for this project, we have consider the use of fund balance in the water fund to use for the water main. That's an option. We also have the American Recovery Act dollars as an option. And as another big thank you to our legislative delegation, council did a budget for the well 1 water main replacement. And that was approximately $1 million. And with the legislative delegation's help, we were able to receive funding for that project, so that could be almost a direct replacement, not quite one-to-one, but very close. So we do have funding in the water fund, in the various pieces and parts of the water fund, to fund this project and get it taken care of. It's just a matter of where best those funds should come from. And as Ken mentioned, both of us are available to answer questions.
I have a question about where it says on the city funding for city streets. Are we talking transportation benefit district money for that 705,000? Are we talking general fund dollars?
Uh,
Under the project cost slide where it shows city funding,
uh,
under city streets, we show a cost of 705,000. Is that transportation benefit district funds or general fund dollars?
would probably not be TBD funds. Those are dedicated to preservation and maintenance, usually, not always. But we also have funding in our TIF account that we could use for that project as well.
Okay. And then on the city water funds, we have several city-owned water properties that we could probably sell to help with this project, don't we?
There are definitely the water funding, even though that's a pretty big number. I don't consider funding that piece of the project a huge issue, only because, like I mentioned, with the help of the legislative delegation, we have that almost one-to-one replacement. But we also have money from the American Recovery Act that can be used on this project. It could be used for water, stormwater, sewer, or broadband, and a couple other minor pieces. But that's a big number. But like I said, it's not a major concern as far as this project goes.
And this water line is just due to be replaced because of its age, or is
Yeah.
it going to be adding any more services to it?
Ken, yeah, go ahead.
It's replacing it both. It's replacing the water main because it's at the end of its life. It's replacing the water services that go serve existing residents. And then it's also adding some additional fire hydrants where there are none. So it's kind of those three things: extending the life of the water main, upgrading the service so we make sure they're not leaking, and then adding some fire hydrants.
And that option where you put like a balloon inside the pipe and kind of reseal it, that's not an option or cost savings?
That is an option for pipes that are transmit things by gravity, like
Okay.
a sewer pipe or a storm pipe.
Okay.
And remember, a water pipe's under pressure already. So typically not replaced that way. Typically, where you're replacing a water main because it's cast iron, or in this case, it's asbestos concrete. And it's just at the end of its life. If you dug it up and hit it, it would just disintegrate because it's so old.
Great.
Recall there was a sinkhole on 7th Street, just north of the bridge, that we dug up. And the reason for the sinkhole is because one of our former wooden water mains was in the ground and was still there and it was rotting away. The other reason was an old cedar log that was there. So that just, the water main's at the end of its design life.
Thank you.
So, there's more talking about ways to get into town when you have to block off chunks of railroad to do this project. We have a lot more ways to get into town, don't we?
We do. Before I proposed that, I would want to talk to our key businesses along there, our dentist, our Habitat for Humanity. I want to talk to Robert Heron. I want to talk to MTA and come up with a solution. First, I want to know what the cost savings were from our contractor.
Yeah,
estimated, and then talk with those partners that are going to get a lot of complaints from their customers on what's the best way before I went down that path. Because if you close the road, you don't have as many flaggers that you have to pay.
yeah. Okay,
Councilmember Feast, yeah.
I think Councilmember Schmidt had his hand up before I did.
Okay. Councilmember Schmidt?
Appreciate it. If I recall correctly, were we planning on doing some sort of roadway realignment with this project?
The road gets realigned vertically when you take out the tracks. Right.
Mhm.
So, but not horizontally. It doesn't.
Gotcha.
It doesn't move much.
Okay. That clarified it. Thank you. I misunderstood that a couple of years ago. I think when we first talked about that, I wasn't sure what the need was for the realignment, if there was an actual horizontal realignment. And if I can just follow up comment regarding budget. I am pretty comfortable personally with this from the water fund perspective, for the reasons sort of Jeff mentioned. Plus, I also anticipate additional potentially purchase and sale of waterfront property in the next couple of years, right? We've had some other thoughts on development of some of that surplus property. And again, I think there may be an offsetting cost there. I guess not potentially playing it too close to too close there, but I think, again, I would be comfortable absorbing some of this. I would be comfortable absorbing this cost of it, this extra cost here in the water fund if it comes down to it.
All right, and I agree with Councilmember Schmidt as well. My thoughts around how we support our downtown business infrastructure and make sure that we have the resources available to understand, well, we need to understand how long the project's going to be, of course, estimated, overrun for timing and all of that. And, when I think about, gosh, if this is going to be, a good chunk and if paving happens in summer months, start worrying about, those businesses. So I think we need to really consider as a council if it really is a cost savings in the long run to shut the road completely down for the whole time. So and I think there's lots of different options, but I think we need to be real clear about what the plan is. And I think that we, like Ken said, his plan to do outreach and, coordinate with our local business community is going to be vital to make sure that everybody's feeling good about moving forward and being able to celebrate the reopening of and the new gateway to increase their business capacity in the long run. But I think that we got to be real tight on how we take care of the community down there.
Jim, you got a question?
I heard correctly that the water main that's getting replaced there was asbestos, and you were going to be replacing up to the meters as well. So then that way the old galvanized, most likely what's there is going to be new now. Is that what I've heard?
Yes, it'd be all new. So you'd
that's
have yep. So you'd have a brand new water main from 8th Street all the way up to past Pacific Court. New water services, new boxes, new fire hydrants.
That's huge.
Yep.
I have a comment, Ken and Jeff.
Mhm.
I've kind of been a fan of this ever since we first approached this project, and I think it's an absolute must to have the bus pull off. I don't really have much sympathy for the drivers that have to pull back on. It'd be much safer for those women with children that need to get off there and cross the road. And the safety blinkers at the corners of what was that, 9th? I think it was 9th. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're gonna clean up the turn lane situation. So yeah, I can see where you might need a turn lane where the 9th Street, at each intersection, but not the whole way. But anyway. So anyway, Jeff, I had a question. Has there been any talks with Andrew Spear and the owner of the what was that building they were going to put in there?
Olympic Title.
Yeah, Olympic Title.
Mm-hmm. We
I'm sorry. The reason I'm thinking of it is because I thought that's why we were going to offset. We were going to take out that right-of-way area right there.
Yeah, so as part of the project approval, back in 2018, I think it was, the council agreed to vacate and abandon that portion where the trees are, right up next to the street, after the building permit had been approved and construction had started.
Okay.
The building permit has been approved, but it has not been picked up. And we have not had any communication recently with Mr. Spear or the owner.
Okay. But I would think that a conversation might want to take place because it seems to me they needed to put water underneath over to their lot, a new line.
Yeah, one of the reasons, and not at all a major reason or a big part of this, but one of the factors was that development participating in this upgrade. And as Ken mentioned, we need to build this now, or give money back, and nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, no. I just hate to see them cut the road up to put a water line in.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Move on. Anybody else for Ken? Oh, Joe's got one.
Just briefly, the question. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear as well. I would be supportive of continuing to complete this project. My quick question there though was on timeline. Are we, you said 2022, so that's right around the corner here. Are we talking about going to design in 2022? Or what are you saying there? Are we talking about actually doing the job here?
So the question I heard is timeline, and when do we need to basically start to finish design? So TIB has basically told us we have to spend the funds in 2022. That's what I'm expecting to hear back from them, and that's what they told us. So backing up from that, as soon as you approve the budget, and actually kind of right now we're continuing to work, there's design money in your budget last year. We're continuing to go. And we've been doing a lot of design in preparation so we can provide some plans and show our progress at TIB end of the month.
Yeah, so design should be almost complete, and we would go to construction next year after the appropriate community outreach and talking to the businesses and our partners, as Ken mentioned earlier.
Excellent. That answers my question. Thank you.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I did have a couple of comments and questions. One is that I know from wearing my hat at the chamber that city staff did reach out to the Downtown Visioning Committee early on when this was going, when they helped to facilitate some of the outreach to the business community. I'm sure that it's probably time to reopen those conversations. But we've also had continued conversations with the county about the opportunity to extend the project and the ability for them to take advantage of the lower cost of mobilization by tagging on to this project. And it doesn't sound like it at this time that's something that is on their 6-year plan even. So I do know though that they have a history of stormwater and runoff issues in that area. So it might be worthwhile to at least reconvene that conversation and see how we may be affected as this project moves forward.
I do know that our public works staff has reached out to county public works staff and had some of those discussions. But the timeline that controls, unfortunately, is the TIB grant dollars. But we have and will continue to reach out to county staff to try and partner with them to complete this project all the way from 101. It's really a entryway to the entire community. And we would look forward to the opportunity to talk with them and potentially work with them.
All right. Then wrap it up with that project.
Yeah, I don't see any more council questions or anything. So I think we can move on to the next one if council's ready to do that.
I think so.
Okay. And Mr. Gill is again presenting on our parking lot across the street here. We'll get a brand new PowerPoint presentation here in a second and get an update on that project. So, Ken?
Okay, bear with me here, folks. Donna and I worked out the silliness that we have to go through with Zoom to make this work for you tonight. So Donna gets big kudos for so you can see the real screen, not all the silly PowerPoint stuff. Okay, so a little bit of project history. This is the site of the former Lincoln Gym. In your packet, but not a part of this presentation, thank Brooke Kiltz for digging up the history and Donna for distributing it to you. It had a former gym. There's a couple pictures. It shows a some students playing instruments in there. And the best part about the article that made me the most excited is I was concerned that we'd find some petroleum contamination out there. And recall that a couple months ago, we were digging some test holes out there to see if we could find any remnants of the foundation or petroleum contamination, and we didn't find any. So I was excited about that, but I was equally excited because in that article that talks about in a late November day, some volunteer high school crews trenching across the road to put in water lines and steam lines. So the former gym was heated by, a boiler from the school that sits here at City Hall, not a oil tank or something like that. So I was really excited about that.
And Ken, I just have to mention here, I'm sure the high school boys that were doing that were volunteers.
Yeah, that I'm sure in November it wasn't raining at all. I bet it wasn't raining or it wasn't cold. So I'm thankful that they did that. So next slide is our one of our two grants. Director Ziegler gets all the credit for getting the grant for the Department of Commerce, and I also want to thank the Shelton Centennial Lions Club. I know several of you participate in that, and they are our funding partner also. So I appreciate all their time and all their effort. One of the conditions of the Commerce Grant is that we need to put up 4 basketball hoops and 2 pickleball courts, so as amenities to the parking lot. So it's more than a parking lot. Current conditions, it's a gravel lot. It's used by city staff during the week and the church on the weekends and weeknights. So it's not uncommon when I leave here at night to see the parking lot full. So it gets used. I talked a little bit about the soils analysis. That's our backhoe. That's our staff. The X marks the spot that we We dug one of our holes. We dug 5 test pits out there. And we did a infiltration test. That hose is coming from the fire hydrant in the northeast corner, and determine what the infiltration rate really is. The water going in to the ground, and when it doesn't rise up in the pit, that's the infiltration rate. There's really no more any analysis that you need to do. So, and we were blessed that these soils are infiltrating, which was really exciting again for me, because at the MTA parking lot just north of here, they had some struggles with that due to some high groundwater table. Yellow dots shows their test pit locations, and it shows a little bit of the layout. Test pit 1 is the basketball court and the pickleball court. And then of course, the test that you on the previous slide was at test pit 5. It's showing the parking. Kind of one of the visions I have for this is a location for a farmer's market. We've done them in the past at Evergreen Square, and with the success, but I think this will also be a great opportunity to have that here. We have parking around the perimeter and also at City Hall, but in any of these parking spots between test pit 3 and test pit 2, I just imagine tents set up with vendors, and a lot of big community event here.
Yeah.
We've done some internal review. I on purpose did not clean this up because it was done by Director Harris with his red pencil. So a lot of staff time maximizing parking spaces, and making sure that we've got enough spots to accommodate everybody when we're all done. And a lot of back and forth between our interdepartments with, I thank Jason Dose, our city planner, to make sure that we meet all our landscaping codes. And also a lot of input from the neighbors that across the street with the church, and also the new neighbor that just recently built the house in the southeast corner there, just east of our house that we own at 218. Tonight we're presenting you kind of a couple concepts that I'd love to get your head nods and thoughts and ideas on. But one of them is using some infiltration, and green is the pond, and orange is the parking. So so if you do infiltration and are required to use some traditional asphalt, it takes up part of your spot that you have for parking. So this is just a sketch. It's not a design. It's just a schematic. But let's keep this kind of in the back of your mind. We can flip back to it later. But I want to ask you guys some more questions so you get those questions fresh in your head. So several of you have visited or attended the ribbon cutting for the permeable paving parking lot at MTA, right between United Way and CenturyLink off Railroad Avenue. And those use permeable pavers. I'm going to skip ahead, and then we can come back to this. The other design that I'm going to show you that is several where you're at were the Pear parking lot, which uses traditional asphalt and bioswales before it drains into the bay. So this is a picture under the construction of the MTA parking lot. That piece of equipment that looks like a poorly designed riding lawnmower is the piece of equipment that places not just one block, but a dozen at a time, and makes that work much more efficient than it would for a mason. So it was so fast, that was a day's work right there. And then this is a scan that really shows the landscaping, but I wanted to show you this is a paved parking lot that treats the water before it goes out into the bay. So I'm going to go back up to my questions real quick. And what I'm asking for your help for tonight is, when the project's all done, what do you want it to look like? Do you want it to look like the MTA parking lot with permeable pavers? Do you want it to look like the Pear Orchard parking lot, which I compare to kind of the a newer version of what we have out here in City Hall with asphalt? And with your input, we can go finish that design and go get the best price with our bidding process. So that's all I had to present tonight. And I see Councilmember Schmidt has got his hand up.
Just had a couple of questions regarding the permeable pavers. While certainly I'm a fan of exploring, different paving options. This is a larger parking lot than the MTA parking lot. And just, I'm aware in the highway setting that permeable pavement or similar materials, the life expectancy is much less than typical asphalt, but in the city or a parking lot environment, it could be much different. And so I kind of was just curious, what's the longevity between just typical asphalt or concrete? Obviously, there's a cost with the stormwater component that we could be, mitigating or, ultimately a net zero cost potentially. And the other thing is just kind of how do permeable pavers handle overflow situations? So when we have those big storms that occur, which seem to be happening every year now, because they're not, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but how are they sort of interlocked together? Is this going to come up when we have a rising water table potentially, and dislocate a bunch of pavers? I'm not exactly sure how this all kind of goes together. So any more data on that would be helpful.
That's a great question. I was hoping you'd ask that. So the question I heard is, if we build permeable pavers, how long is it going to last? Is the thing going to fall apart and look ugly? And I'm going to kick back to that slide. So you've got that visual, a really good visual of that in front of you. And we were blessed in that we got to use this parking lot as a guinea pig for when we've had that record rain last January. And recall this site had petroleum contamination, and they had to put a liner. You don't see it in this picture, but it's down there about 3 feet. So I thought for sure if this one was going to fail, it hits the liner and it goes out to the storm system in the alley. But they did not have a puddle out there during that big record rain. It is smaller than what we're proposing, and Councilmember Schmitz pointed that out. The thing that I like, let me back up. You also asked a question, is permeable asphalt and concrete. I like to take the kids to the Rainiers game. And if several years ago, they used permeable asphalt to pave a lot of that lot there at Cheney Stadium. And every time I go to a successive game, it looks like that parking lot is turning into gravel. It's just kind of falling apart. By my wife's elementary school, there is a permeable concrete sidewalk, and it's got trees underneath it, and it's becoming green, and it still works, but it sure does need a lot of maintenance. They have to, Pierce County's out there with those special scrubber, back truck that costs several thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I see a lot of maintenance in that. With permeable pavers, I don't see that as a problem for this site. And here's why: is there's no trees, unless they, at least for 25, 50 years. And I don't see any of them being dislodged when the big vans over at MTA turn on it. Take a walk for it, but it looks pretty good. I haven't seen one come out. And they don't go in as individual blocks. They kind of go in as a jigsaw puzzle. So they all lock together. The thing that I'm struggling with is as a good cost estimate. Are they equal? What are the bids going to be? And you don't know till you open the bids. We're kind of in a weird bidding environment right now. With traditional asphalt, you need storm pipe, PVC pipe. It's hard to get. My friend Bucky Mackey was putting in a single family infiltration trench up on Oak Street. And he was telling me how glad that he had pipe at his lot so he could do the job, because he couldn't get it. Right. So also asphalt, traditional asphalt, whether you use permeable or not, has got to usually come from Olympia, Lakeside or granite. where materials for a permeable paving parking lot, the gravel section underneath there, it comes from Miles Pit right up the road. So materials, Shelton is blessed with materials. So I really can't tell you right now what one is cheaper. And I've pushed our consultant to tell me which one. And a couple of months ago, I got him to tell me that the traditional asphalt was going to be cheaper by about 45,000. And then they flipped back around and said, we don't know because of the crazy bidding environment. So, as far as performance, if you're concerned about that, I would take a trip over to MTA and take a look at it. And but Marshall Cryer's getting ready to retire here in a few months, and I haven't heard him tell me that they've had poor performance issues or have to do anything to it. So the thing that also think about it is aesthetics, is it wouldn't match what's there in front of City Hall right now. So you guys get to decide and all these things, and then that's why you're here, and that's why I need your help.
So, I'm on a while back when you were talking about asphalt versus permeable pavers. The issue was with the pavers, you don't have to do a retaining pond. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
With the permeable pavers, you're not taking up your property with ponds.
Right.
Pond maintenance, it
So,
goes right into the ground.
right. But so with asphalt, you would have to dig down. So there would be a cost of that part. I think the permeable pavers without a retaining pond underneath or wherever you would put it would in the long run be the less expensive way to go. Am I right or wrong?
So the question I heard you ask is the permeable pavers going to be less expensive to construct? And I don't know. We don't know until we open bids. But let's say we wanted to answer your question. We do two designs. One that's traditional asphalt, it looks kind of like in front of City Hall now, and one that's a permeable paver. And we open bids in both, and council chooses. I'm not sitting here recommending that because I'm a big fan of spending money on men and materials, not more design money.
Yeah.
What I would love to hear from you guys is what you want it to look like when it's all done.
Will there be, if we did the pavers, would there be some rain gardens around the project?
Absolutely.
But with the asphalt, there wouldn't be, right?
With the asphalt, there would be a lot of landscaping too.
Okay.
When I flick back a couple slides, and I can show you a little bit of what I guess it would look like, what is kind of a schematic. So there's with ponds, right?
Yeah.
Takes up a lot of parking. That green takes up a lot of parking.
Yeah.
Could you put those ponds on the perimeter, on the corners? Has anybody been to the new Starbucks and Wendy's yet? But their stormwater is treated with traditional asphalt, and they have their ponds at the corners of the property. There's 4 of them. And then let's look at some permeable pavers. Let's just use this for an example. Let's say you did all permeable pavers. You're really maximizing your parking, right? I think Jay, I'm going to give him credit for 63 stalls that he's got planned out there in red pencil.
Can I ask a clarifying question? From the original project and how it was proposed with the permeable pavement, are we meeting the community's desires? Do we have enough pickleball courts? Do we have the basketball courts that we promised? Because I remember hearing that we were going to pave the whole thing and it was going to be one, we were going to have a big court type situation. So I want to make sure that we're meeting the community's needs, right? And My recommendation to my fellow council members would be we can get more parking spaces for our community. That would be fabulous. If we have a permeable situation with landscaped rain gardens that would still match, and then we could use it for community events, and it's safe for people to walk, and it's also ADA accessible. I think that's a like quadruple win. But I want to make sure, Ken, that, and maybe I'm crazy because the newest one on the block here, but I remember hearing that we needed more than just one court.
So a couple questions I heard there is what's the best option? So regardless of what option you choose, permeable pavers or traditional asphalt, the grant still requires us to put up 4 basketball hoops and 2 pickleball courts. So either option, you get that, and we have to provide that. Either option, we have to meet our landscaping code. Either option, doesn't matter. We're just talking about the driving surface, the parking surface, okay? You're not crazy, because I've been trying to fight with this dilemma through the entire project. I've been trying to, what's the best? What's going to be the best for the city? And that's why I need your help. Councilman?
What's the ESU of that lot? How many ESUs are in that lot? We'd be paying ourselves back for every month.
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I could certainly calculate that and give that to you.
Okay, and also my opinion is we don't want to lose any more parking. That lot's pretty full during the daytime. I think that we should maximize our parking by using permeable pavers.
Okay. Councilmember Schmidt, I love the yellow hand because I can see your hand up, but I think you were ahead of the yellow hand for Councilmember Bode, but I'm not sure. So but go ahead.
Okay, thanks, no problem. Just a quick question. I can't recall, did we consider, as part of this, did we consider putting in those tent anchors in the paved surface? So when we do have community events, we're not needing, because I'm not going to be a fan. If we go the permeable pavers route, we can't pound stakes into that. So if we're expecting to do, community events or using the space, which I think would be fantastic, we just need to be conscious of that. And I'm not sure what kind of design differences that would create and cost differences, but I would be supportive of doing some of that preemptive work ahead of time. So, we can do the community events thing there.
That's a great comment. The question I heard is, are we going to have some anchors so you can put your tent out there in specified spots? And that was part of the original design. Director Ziegler and I go back and forth on that. We're growing crazy, and we debate whether what's best to tell people exactly where to go, or provide people with some 5-gallon buckets with concrete in them with anchors so that they can put their tent out there wherever the event desires. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on that, and what it does. They certainly make those. You can purchase them. I've researched them, that you can put right in and drive over on top of them. And my question on that is, once you put those in, what's the maintenance on those? Let's say that I break one, and that's me because I hit it with a hammer or something like that, or drive over it with the loader or something like that. How long do they last? What's the loading of them? Are they breakable, or are they indestructible? You can never break them.
And there's different tent sizes. So where would we put them? I mean, there's 8-foot tents and 10-foot tents. And
yeah, I guess maybe my point, just to clarify, was more or less just similar to any other paving project. Again, if we're going to use the space for community events, we just have a solution that is prescribed, so we're not damaging the paved surface. So there's not an expectation that whomever uses the space is able to pound stakes in or whatever, there may be those requests in the future if we do that. So as long as we have a workable solution, then it's good with me. Thank you.
Okay.
Ken? Oh, go ahead, James.
Perfect. I definitely like the pavers. I'd love to see the cost difference. That would be the biggest thing for me. And the biggest unknown to me is like a couple of people said, is how well the pavers actually are going to last. I haven't seen long-term pavers yet personally, but I'm sure they're out there.
So Ken, did you say that we have 4 hoops planned for that basketball court?
Yes, and I'll
Okay,
point them out here with my cursor. 1, 2, 3, 4.
so the Lions Club have purchased 2.
Okay.
So we're looking at purchasing 2 more, right?
With our project, you bet.
Okay.
And the only reason is because that's what our grant requires. So
I got it.
Thank you for purchasing 2.
Oh, you're welcome. Our pleasure.
Yep. Councilmember Peterson, I think your hand is up.
Yes, but I think I saw Mayor Dorsey was trying to chime in. Kevin, did you have something first?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was just gonna ask, if our target audience is to have folks like the farmers market and those types of events, have we floated this plan past their board or the Forest Festival Committee or Christmas Town USA folks, just to kind of get some feedback from them about what they would like to see? And secondly, is there an example of another project that uses the permeable pavers that we could use as kind of a case study? I love the local one. I've seen it. I've walked it, but something that has been there a little bit longer, because I'm with James. My concern is the longevity of the product. But I think if it's reasonably within cost, to me, it makes sense to maximize the parking that's there, and also to walk the walk as far as being sustainable and being mindful of our stormwater. So that would be my first choice if we can afford it, and if it's going to hold up.
Okay.
So as far as the partnerships are concerned, Deputy Mayor, we are planning to talk to those groups. We haven't yet, mostly because they've been in the middle of planning huge events, and asking them questions at this time probably wouldn't be a great idea, having a sit-down planning session. But before we finalize the design, we absolutely will.
If you ever need anyone to bug any of those folks, I'm regularly in contact with most of them.
No, we absolutely will get in touch with them. It's just we wanted to get the current events, the most recent one last weekend and the one planned for September, off the ground and planned really well. And then we will go into those conversations when it's dark and rainy.
Now, Jeff and Ken, either way we go on this parking lot, whether it's all blacktop or pavers, the basketball court still has to be blacktop, correct?
Correct. I was going to plan on doing that in concrete.
Concrete. Okay. Well,
yes.
So if that's the case, then do we have any issues with storm drain on that particular section?
No issues
We
there
have to
because
spend a lot of money on that.
no. So the question I heard is that since we make the basketball court all in concrete, do we have any storm drain issues? And the answer is no, because it's surrounded by green. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't show up in this black and white, but all these little dots are landscaping or grass. Okay. And designed that on purpose so that if I'm going for a dunk on Director Ziegler and I miss, and the ball doesn't roll out into the road on 4th, it hits doesn't hit 4th Street.
Right.
Well, you better have some real springs in your legs if you're going to get up over them.
He's never here when I need him here. He's never in the meetings when I need him here, but I'm sure I can talk about him tomorrow.
Ken, you just volunteered for the first hoop and you and Mark for the first hoops.
I am on board.
Dedication of the basketball court.
I am bored. You bet. You bet.
Okay.
And Ken, I just had a comment about some of the stuff you presented earlier about doing your infiltration testing, and I just wanted to say that that's cool to see. You know, and that's being done in-house, and we're doing some of the preliminary engineering and analysis on things well ahead of time, so we know what we're about to step into, and it's good to have the capability here in the city, and one that I don't think we had a few years ago. So appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Does that do it for Ken tonight?
I don't see any more hands raised or questions from council, but let me check again real quick. I think that is it for this evening. If anything comes up in the meantime, you know, over the course of the next week, month, 6 months, an idea comes up, let us know. We will definitely take a look at that, or any ideas we hear from the community or through council. All ideas are worth being considered. So that's, I believe, all we have for you this evening.
Hey, Ken, one more thing. Can you meet me outside on your way out? I want to ask you a question about a sidewalk.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
So our next meeting, I believe, is scheduled for September 7th. August is one with 5 Tuesdays. So that 5th Tuesday, we don't have a study session or a council meeting. So our next one's scheduled for September 7th. And I think the mayor wants to ask if any council members have items for discussion.
Any more items for discussion? If not, the study session is adjourned at what time is that? That phone's just going dead, Jeff.
Yeah, I know it.
7:13.
7:13. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.